Welcome back into the North Star Takes podcast featuring Bailey Pulicki and Jacob Liberta. You can find all our videos here on our YouTube channel, so hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and feel free to give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram as well. Today we're going to be previewing the Vikings Week 4 matchup against the Cleveland Browns. Finally getting off the schneid, getting a win last week, and now we get to face a tough AFC opponent at home as Kevin Stefanski makes his triumphant return to Minnesota. A lot of people thought Stefanski would maybe be the next head coach of the Minnesota Vikings after Mike Zimmer. Cleveland snatched him up, and we never got that opportunity after we won that playoff game against the Saints. So, what's your initial reaction about Kevin Stefanski coming back, and do you think he's going to make this a tough one for the Vikings?
Yeah, I think this will be pretty cool for everybody involved. Honestly, I think Stefanski obviously was here for a decade and a half, 15 years. I mean, he goes all the way back to the very beginning of the Chili days. Like, that's saying something. So, obviously, he has great familiarity with Minnesota, the community, the organization, everybody. So, I think this will be pretty cool for him and the Vikings organization, from ownership to Zimmer himself. But I think it'll also be a tough test because I think he's a pretty intelligent offensive mind, and you could tell that he's a great coach just because, I mean, he made the Browns an 11-game winner, and that was the first time they're 500 or over 500 since 2007. Right. And last time they made the playoffs was nearly 20 years ago. So that's saying something when you go into Cleveland and turn what was a dumpster fire franchise around, and now they're like probably one of the more talented. They have one of the more talented rosters in the league, and then they also, I think, are just one of the better teams in the league. I think they're going to be a playoff mainstay here for, I would say, at least the next few years, in my opinion. Yeah. So I think this will be definitely a challenge, but I think one that hopefully we can come on top in.
Yeah, I think what's going to be interesting is it's going to be the ultimate chess match because Kevin Stefanski was Zimmer's offensive coordinator for a year. True. Now it's going to be his offense going against Zimmer's defense. They both kind of know what each other likes to run, so it's going to be interesting to see which one can throw in the extra wrinkle to really make a difference.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I think Stefanski could also end up throwing in some plays that you just haven't seen before. Might keep something in his back pocket that nobody else has seen, just because, I mean, Zimmer's probably seen it all in practice at one point or another, what Stefanski likes to do, but vice versa. I know maybe Zimmer's got to wrinkle up his sleeve just because Stefanski knows what he likes to do. So, like you said, just a chess match, and can't wait to see it play out.
So I know we're talking offense versus defense here, so we'll get into our defense first. I'm really worried about the run defense still. Yes. I think Dalvin Tomlinson had like the highest grade for Vikings defender last Sunday against Seattle. So that was encouraging that he had a better game. Michael Pierce has looked pretty good so far. Kendricks is obviously a beast. The one thing I have noticed is that Nick Vigil struggles against the run. So it would be nice to get Anthony Barr back. But with Chubb and Hunt, the two-headed monster, and even their third running back, what's his name? They have a third running back. I was watching the game last weekend. He's pretty dang good too.
Yeah, they got a stable backs there that are pretty solid. And obviously, I think they got the best duo in the league. So I think that's a pretty tough test. And I think we're going to have to bring our A game as far as the run D goes. So really the pass defense too, because their offense, Stefanski just knows how to mix it up and play balanced. So I think that's going to be a challenge for us. And I hope Zimmer's ready for it. But like you said, I think the run defense is probably more concerning just because I feel like I haven't seen a great product on the field to this point.
Yeah, I would agree with you. So I think his name is, let's see.
Is it Dearness Johnson?
It's Dearness Johnson, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, he's a quick guy. He's like a pass-catching back. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting challenge for our defense because, honestly, they'll have Odell, but he is only back for one game coming off his ACL. I've seen like Donovan Peoples-Jones has looked really good for the Browns as well, but they're missing Jarvis Landry, who is a type of receiver that could honestly really hurt this defense. So I think it could be kind of a rough start like last week was, but I think Zimmer is going to find a way to eventually calm it down and grab a hold of this game.
For sure, I agree. And honestly, what else helps your run defense is if you play with leads in the second half when the other team can't run the ball anymore. So that would also help. But
factoring into getting leads, can the offense keep up its torrid pace that it's been on for the first three games? Kirk Cousins is playing at an MVP level. Their wide receivers look as good as ever. Thielen doesn't look like he's aging whatsoever. Jefferson's still elite, and KJ Osborne has just made an absolute jump. Got Tyler Conklin, who's been a beast so far this season as well at the tight end position, filling in nicely for Irv Smith. You got a young, improving offensive line, it seems, each week. Christian Darrisaw's knocking on the door of a return. So Do you think the offense can keep it up and get us that lead that we can push into the second half with, and then let Zimmer do the rest from there on out?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. We also got the number one graded play caller as far as offense
Yeah,
goes in
I
the
saw
first 3 weeks
that.
with Clint Kupiak according to PFF. So, I mean, that's always promising, especially for my first-time play caller. But
I love that
I
they're
think
grading play callers now.
I know PFF's amazing. They'll give you analytics on literally anything
They
to do with
will,
football. So I think I really enjoy digesting all of that. But
for sure.
going beyond just play calling and talking about the personnel that's actually be on the field, I think I it's pretty hard to probably sustain the pace that we're on these first 3 weeks. But at the same time, I'd like to think we could, as assuming we can minimize that pass rush as much as possible. Myles Garrett is Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Was last year, is going to be again this year.
Hmm.
And I think that's going to take a lot on its own. But if you can do that, I feel like there are some weak points in the secondary for Cleveland that we could expose. Because, for instance, their first round pick, Greg Newsome, he's going to be out this weekend, it sounds like.
Yeah,
So,
that's big.
yeah, so that's going to help us a lot. And I think that's going to create some matchup problems for Cleveland's defense, whether we're looking to get the ball to Jefferson or Thielen or Osborne, too, who's now merging. So, I'm
Yeah.
pretty excited to see if we can keep that pass game going and keep Kirk at an MVP level because I think running the ball, I mean, I think Dalvin will just have a Dalvin kind of game, assuming he's
Yeah.
going to play. But at the
Right.
same time, I think it will come down to our passing game where we're going to play I'd say, a pretty potent Cleveland offense. So,
Yeah, and I'll be interested to see like how they do offensively because it seemed like last week they didn't put as much of an emphasis on. I mean, Madison still ended up with 26 carries, but it almost felt like they were relying on the pass more than the run with
mhm.
Cook out of there. And so I'm kind of interested to see if with Cook coming back, if he does play, if they keep up that same thing they did against Seattle last week, or if they really try to establish the run again and run play action, which I don't
Yeah.
mind the play action stuff because Kirk's very good at it, but
Mhm.
you don't need to establish the run because when Dalvin Cook's on the field, the run's already established. Like everyone knows he's the best, most talented player on the field, arguably, with Justin Jefferson on our side. So, I
Yeah.
mean, he's a threat. He's a home run threat every time he gets the ball.
Yeah, and I think if we can keep the mix like we had last week, like you referenced there with Kirk throwing the ball 38 times and then Madison running at 26, I'd say that's a pretty good ratio in my opinion.
For
So
sure.
I'd like to keep that going, and let's see if Kubiak feels the same this weekend.
And even the way Kirk's been spreading the ball around too, it's not
Oh,
like
yeah.
one guy is getting all the targets. Like Thielen's got a bulk of the red zone targets, which is pretty normal. I mean, he's kind of Kirk's go-to red zone guy, especially with Rudolph out of the picture.
Yeah, but he doesn't
But
let us down, so I mean, I'm good with it. But
yeah, I'm good with it too, honestly. Jefferson's good, between the 20s, and he can get a touchdown every now and then. And Osborne just seems like a money third down guy right now, which
oh,
is
yes.
just fantastic. So
I know,
I'd be
right?
curious. I mean, hopefully we don't have to ever find out, but like if Thielen has to miss a game or something, whether or not Osborne can be like a true like number 2 receiver, because if he proves he can do that, then we're sitting very well for the future at the wide receiver position.
Yes, we would be. Ooh, yeah, no kidding.
So let's get into our X factors for this game. Who do you think is going to be the X factor on either side of the ball? I guess uh, against the Browns.
Yeah, I'm not even going to go and say one player. I'd probably say a group, and I'm going to say the offensive line. I feel like
Okay.
with the pass rushers that Cleveland brings into this game with Garrett and Clowney, I think that's going to be critical to our offensive success. Because if we're going to win this game, we're going to have to score quite a few points, I think. So I don't think our defense is just going to shut down that Cleveland offense. So I
Yep.
think we're going to have to play pretty well offensively, and that starts and ends really with the offensive line. Because I think if you're going to give Kirk time, then we'll be fine. But if you're not, then this could be a long day, and Garrett could rack up another few sacks like he had last week when he had 4.5. So
That'd
I
be
think I got
rough.
to say the offensive line here, and basically continuing on the trend that they're on with these last couple games would be huge for our team.
Yeah, I think if they can come out and play well against this defensive line, then I think that bodes really well for the future of this offensive line, especially going forward this season.
100%.
And then the following weeks, like they play Detroit, and Carolina's got a pretty good defense, so that'd be another interesting test. But
Mm-hmm.
they don't have anybody like Myles Garrett, so
Oh, no.
my X factor will be on the defensive side of the ball, and more specifically the corners. Patrick Peterson, he hasn't graded so well this season, but to my eye test, he really hasn't been that bad.
Mm-hmm.
He got burnt by DK Metcalf a couple times last week, but honestly, that's not really a fair one-on-one matchup at this point. So
No.
I wasn't too concerned about that. Second half, they were able to rein him in. And then Bashad Breeland's been an absolute disaster.
Yep.
Mackenzie Alexander, I think, has been a little underwhelming as well. And then you got the whole Dantzler drama going on between him and Zimmer. He's in Zimmer's doghouse. He's tweeting stuff like, I don't know. I personally believe he's the second best corner on the roster, but Zimmer's got some beef with him that he's not going to let him play, especially after Bashad Breeland's like the worst graded corner in the NFL right now, I believe.
Yep. Yes, he is.
So, yeah, I'm looking at the corners because, yeah, you'll have to defend OBJ. Donovan Peoples-Jones is looking really good.
Plus, if you go deeper on that roster, they got Anthony Schwartz, who's a little track sprinter who can run like a 4.28 40, which is just insane. And I don't think we have any corners that can keep up with him. So I could definitely see Stefanski drawing up something for him. But
yeah, I could absolutely see that as well. So the Browns, even though they're without Jarvis Landry, they have some real talent at the wide receiver position. So that's going to be my X factor is can our corners just do a decent job? And honestly, until we get like full confidence in these corners, I feel like it's going to be like that every week. We're going to go into every matchup and wonder, can these guys defend whoever's on the other side of them?
I know, and it's disappointing because this should be one of Zimmer's things that he's just good at, because that was kind of the reputation he brought in here to Minnesota, was that he was like a cornerback whisperer, but surely isn't showing up right now over these last few years. So I would definitely like to see some improved corner play here real quick.
What's crazy is if you think about it, in all the years Zimmer's been here, the only corner he's really developed is Xavier Rhodes. And that wasn't even his own draft pick. Like Rhodes had already been here for what, two years?
Yeah, or a year. Yeah,
a year.
And then I would also say Waynes was. I'd say he's more of a success story as well.
True.
Like I don't think he was ever as good as Rhodes for sure, but I think Waynes is a pretty solid number 2.
He was, yeah, and he was a first-round pick, and for a while there, people were worried if he was going to be a bust. He took a little longer to develop, but Mackenzie Alexander had a good year or two as well. He hasn't been as good since he's come back, but definitely a little concerning at the lack of developing at the cornerback position. But, yeah, we'll just have to see how they fare this Sunday. So, with that being said, we're getting to our score predictions here.
Let's go.
I think we're both predicting it's going to be close either way. What's your gut telling you, though, on the score?
Yeah, my gut telling me, I thought long and hard about this, but honestly, I had to look at the lines. I saw Cleveland was favored by 2. I saw the over-under sitting at 51.5 as we're currently recording this, but I got to roll with the Vikings by a point. I think they're going to come around at the end of the game. It'll be a Kirk fourth quarter comeback, and they're going to take away Cleveland covering by 2. They're going to kick a game-winning field goal with Greg Joseph, who once upon a time kicked for Cleveland, I believe. So I think this will be a nice win over Stefanski's team, and it's going to be a nail-biter. So get ready to just be a little nervous on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm anticipating some nerves, and if it comes down to a kick, I think every Vikings fan is going to be holding their breath. I have a close game as well, pretty low scoring, not too much different from you, honestly. I have the Vikings winning 27-24. I don't know. It won't be like an end of the game field goal. I don't think it'll be like a mid fourth quarter Greg Joseph kick to put us ahead, or maybe even a touchdown by Kirk to put us ahead. And then we just kind of hold them off from there. I think Baker Mayfield's going to be a little flustered with the loud crowd noise at US Bank. And I think if it comes down to the end of the game and he's having to lead a drive, I don't know. I think it might end up being too much for him, and the defense will be able to prevail in that situation. So I got us winning a close one.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, actually, with the crowd noise. Stefanski even mentioned that he thinks this will be the loudest place environment that Cleveland will play in all year. Right. So, I mean, he knows what it's like. He knows when the crowd gets going that it's going to be loud and hard to hear and hard to communicate. So I think that could definitely play a huge factor, actually, into this game. And like you said, I don't know how many environments Baker's played like this, because obviously this is an AFC-NFC matchup, and Cleveland's never been to US Bank. Last time Cleveland was off in London, but
right, yeah, true.
So yeah, we'll see how he deals with that. But
that's the one thing that makes this Cleveland game such a winnable game, is that they actually have a very good roster, but Baker, I think, is such a wild card, because I think on any given Sunday, if he gets flustered or if he can't exactly get the calls in, he could be kind of a reckless quarterback. So I know you and I know you're kind of a Baker guy, but at the same time, like when we did our fantasy football video, we kind of talked about him being an overrated fantasy quarterback, but I think he's slightly overrated in general, honestly. I think he's a guy that you can definitely pester and annoy, and you can get under his skin, and I think Zimmer's going to find a way to do that.
Yeah, honestly, I love his personality. I love the
I
moxie
do
and the
too. Yeah.
leadership that he brings to a team. But yeah, like you said, I think he's obviously a little bit underwhelming for a number one overall pick, but he's able to run their system and do it pretty well. And obviously, they won 11 games last year when they
Yep.
put it all together, especially with a good coach. But I think that he could end up in a bad spot if we really get after them early. But at the same time, he could also go off. I've seen games where he's just clicking on all cylinders, and the offense around him obviously is very talented. So if
Right.
he's going, everybody's going, and then that can be a long day for us. But
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be interesting to see. This probably is going to be the toughest game so far we've played this season. I know the Cardinals were an explosive offense, but just the all-around talent that the Browns have, I think, is going to make for a very tight but exciting game at the same time. So I'm looking
yeah, I think
forward
so
to
too.
seeing it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that'll do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Be sure to hit the like button and hit subscribe as well if you haven't already. Feel free to give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram and leave your comments below how you're feeling about this weekend's game. Do you think the Vikings can get back to 500? And do you think that'll propel them to go on a nice run here before the bye week? How do you think the defense will hold up against the Browns offense, Zimmer versus Stefanski, etc.? So, yeah, thanks for watching.